Welcome to The Infinite Rabbit Hole, the podcast that goes beyond the ordinary to explore the unexplained. Tired of recycled content? Good, because we dig deeper to uncover fresh perspectives on cryptids, conspiracies, paranormal phenomena, ancient mysteries, and everything else in between. Our hosts bring unique viewpoints and lively debates for diverse insights to make every episode a journey into the unknown, backed by research and knowledge that goes beyond the first page of Google. If you love diving into the unknown with us, we'd love your support to keep the journey going strong. Here's how you can help. First, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review on your favorite podcast player. It's one of the best ways to help new listeners discover the show. Or, if you prefer, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com and drop your review there. Want to hear yourself on the show? Leave us a voicemail on our website, and we'll play it at the start of our next episode. Share your thoughts, a story, advertise your project, or even a topic suggestion. We'd love to feature you. For the more immersive experience, join us live on Twitch every Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Time at twitch.tv/Infinite Rabbit Hole. Chat with us in real time, share your thoughts, and be part of the action as we explore the unknown together. And for those of you looking for exclusive content, behind the scenes goodies, check out patreon.com/Infinite Rabbit Hole. It's the best way to support the podcast and get access to premium episodes and more. Thanks for being a part of the Infinite Rabbit Hole community. Now, let's get back to exploring the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Welcome to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, everybody. How are we doing today? We'll start with Yakuba over there. Hello, sir.
Man, you always start with me. What about poor Heffrey?
I started with Heffrey last week.
Okay.
I go back and forth. Yeah, I got a little tally mark thing right here.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Dude, I'm phenomenal. I wrapped up the end of the rifle season for deer here in Wisconsin. We got 5 deer in the freezer that I butchered at home, and then I got a 6th one that is getting turned into brats and jerky over at a butcher shop, which I'm not gonna. They're pretty backed up. I walked in there and they had like 30 deer laying on the floor in the cooler, and so they're like, "Yeah, expect like March of a time frame." And I was like, "All right, cool. Well, that works out anyway."
Jeez, man, that's
But yeah. So I took dead meat. One of the quote unquote does that I shot ended up being a button buck, so I filled my buck tag, so that was cool. But I didn't freeze his back straps. I ended up taking him and I cut him up to medallions, and I made him for dinner tonight with some mashed sweet potatoes and some caramelized onions and stuff like that. It was phenomenal. So we have our meal prep for the week. So yeah, I'm doing great, dude. I'm tired beyond belief. I've been up in the weather report said 7 degrees, but with the wind chill felt like -7 for this entire time I've been off work, sitting out on the tree stand, getting deer and stuff like that and processing them. So I'm all wiped out and stuff, but I'm stoked. It's been a really cool last 5 days or so.
Sweet, dude. Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Lots of dead durs.
Lots of dead durs. You got some of it. You got some of the back straps.
I did, and I appreciate
you. A carton of eggs for Thanksgiving.
Aw.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving claws came by and gave me back straps and
turkey claws.
Yeah. Heffrey, what's up, buddy?
What's up, bro?
You got some new toys, huh?
I always got new toys, man. You know me.
Tell us about your toys.
I got all kinds of toys, man. We got the stream going. You know, we got a lot of cool gadgets. I bought some lights today. I got some new lights. Nah, I just been...
He's like a Marvel character scientist. He's just like...
I got a new skateboard, bro. Check this thing out, dude.
Yeah, show me.
Yo, listen, bro. I got this. You know how much this was?
50 cents.
Bucks, $20, bro. Got the tie-dye on it.
It's a little mini
ripped off, bro.
Cruiser, dude. Let's go, bro. Yeah, I'm chilling, man. I'm ready to go, though.
I got that same one for free from a yard in the neighborhood. It's great.
From a yard?
Damn.
I guess they don't want this.
I don't have kids to like go out and like snatch stuff from people's yards for me.
You think I pay my kids to go steal shit?
No, I think you just send them to do it for free.
Well, the truth is that I do pay them. All right, we have some announcements to make. You guys ready to get into this?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you are.
Yep.
All right, first things first, I want to say thank you to our new follower on Twitch, i3lip. Thank you very much, appreciated for the follow. Hope you're here tonight. If you are, thank you very much. I don't know if you're listening to Spotify or if you came across us at one point, but thank you, really do appreciate it. All right, so we have a couple of announcements. Let's go with the formatting announcement first. 2025 is going to be very heavy into the conversation and guesting episodes, so we can make room for some special Patreon stuff. Now we're going to get into the second announcement. Patreon.com/infinite rabbit hole. January's topic has now been chosen. In fact, January and February's topic has now been chosen. January, I'm trying to have it out January 1st for you guys. We will be diving in to the John Teeter mystery. Now, if anybody that doesn't know who John Teeter is a time traveler from the year 2036 who came back to the year 1975 to gather up an IBM 5100 computer with certain emulation skills that helped out with code, with malfunctioning codes in the future that helped basically keep the internet alive and help ward off certain events that would happen. Some very, very, very interesting stuff that came in. We have a lot of predictions from this man from the year 2001 that ended up coming true. We'll dive into that very heavily. I have 19 pages already written down, and I'm only through one book. I got 2 more to go. So this is going to be a long one. Let's see. Topic number 2. February is going to be... See, I was going to give you guys a 4th episode of Skinwalker Ranch, but turns out that I have come in contact with an additional... I'm just going to show you the sides here. Additional thick books dedicated to the Skinwalker Ranch. Thick with 2 C's, 3 C's, some might say. So you guys are going to get a brand new, complete episode of Skinwalker Ranch. I think we did 3 episodes for the first one, parts 1, 2, 3. You guys are going to get one giant, huge episode on Patreon for the month of February. Then for the month of March, those who are patrons, we will be opening up a poll soon once I figure out how to do it. Once I figure out how to create a poll on Patreon, we will be putting up 6 options for topics. And in those 6 options, each one will be a part of a category. So the first category will be UFOs and aliens. Second category will be cryptids. Third category is alternate realities, followed by secret societies and fringe science. 1 or 2 of those may be rotated out, with the 6th one being a wild card topic. So we will put down a specific... What are you shaking your finger for, sir? I don't know what he's doing. We'll put down a specific topic for you guys to choose part of those categories. Once you vote it out, that topic will be retired and started having some research done on it, get a script written up, and that will be March's topic. And then the next month, we will do it again for April's topic. We do have some more stuff on the horizon, so hang tight. Check out more posts coming from patreon.com. And as for our very last announcement, the Infinite Rabbit Hole is opening up its doors. We are officially now on the search for a part-time co-host. Part-time, but there are a lot of things that we are looking for in said co-host. There will be more details soon. Make sure you watch the socials. We are looking for somebody to fill in during certain times. There is a lot of stuff planned for 2025, and we will need another voice on the show. It's not going to be an every week thing. It may not be an every month thing. It may not be an every quarter thing. But you'll be officially a part-time co-host for the show. So, like I said, hang tight. Look for the socials and all of everything about what we're looking for and how to apply. There will be an application process. There will be an interview process. And there will be a sort of a trial run process as well. We are only going to accept 5 applicants, okay? So we will take all the applications, we will look, we'll see which 5 we believe have the best chance, and then from there, we will narrow the field down to 1.
We'll give them a spoon, but a group of them will give them a spoon and say, fight to the death.
So keep an eye out. I hope to have this announcement posted to the socials this week of, let's see, today is December 1st. So whenever you guys listen to this episode, it's probably already out there, but we're going to keep the application process open for about a month. So you guys should have plenty of time to still apply. All right. That's all of the announcements, everybody. Hopefully you guys got all of that. If not, you can shoot me a DM or an email or put something in the chat, and I will try to answer my best during the episode tonight. Without further ado, you guys ready to jump into a very IRH Christmas?
Very much so.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, man.
Jeffrey, you look like your head hurts, man.
No.
I'm echoing over there, sir.
Hmm?
I was echoing.
Or are you still echoing?
No, not anymore.
All right, then.
Let's do this. Traditions. Hold on. I got to increase the font size because I'm old and I can't read it. Paganism refers to nature-based polytheistic beliefs widely practiced in ancient times. The term pagan originates from the Latin word paganus, meaning country dweller. Central to pagan beliefs is the idea that nature is sacred and imbued with the divine spirit. The modern celebration of Christmas, often associated with the birth of Jesus Christ, draws heavily from ancient pagan traditions. These include the Roman festival of Saturnalia, honoring Saturn, the god of agriculture, and the Germanic Yule, a celebration of the winter solstice. Both festivals symbolized renewal and the promise of spring, marked by feasting, gift-giving, and communal joy. By the 4th century, as Rome increasingly embraced Christianity, Saturnalia was repurposed into the Christian celebration of Jesus' birth. Saturnalia, originally held from December 17th, became integral to the new holiday now celebrated solely on December 25th. Saturnalia was filled with diverse activities, including religious ceremonies, public feasts, gift exchanges, games, dancing, decorations, and even the temporary liberation of enslaved people. Unique customs like dunking faces in icy water added a playful element. A key ritual involved sacrificing a pig at the temple of Saturn on the festival's first day. This pig was then shared in a communal feast, and pigs, whether live or as pork or sausages, were commonly exchanged as gifts. Like Saturnalia, Yule was originally tied to the winter solstice, a period when the sun's path is at its southernmost point in the northern hemisphere. Traditionally celebrated in January, Yule was later shifted to align with Christmas, a change attributed to the growing influence of Christianity. During his reign between 934 and 961, King Haakon I of Norway decreed that Yule should coincide with Christmas. Yule featured both familiar and distinctive customs. While feasting and gift-giving are shared with modern Christmas, Yule also involved ritual sacrifices of cows, goats, and pigs. The blood from these sacrifices was sprinkled on walls, floors, decorations, and even the participants, symbolizing life itself. Yule logs, decorated with ribbons, holly, and mistletoe, were burned to ward off the darkness and symbolize the return of light. Other traditions, including baking, decorating, meditating, vigils, and height stringing, a practice where individuals placed their hands on a pig and made solemn oaths. Amid Yule festivities loomed the myth of the Wild Hunt, a spectral hunting party led by the Norse god of Odin, accompanied by ghostly riders on skeletal steeds. Odin's hunt was said to capture mortals who failed to hide properly. Today, this legend is often viewed as an early boogeyman tale, used to keep children indoors during the cold, dangerous nights of winter. The concept of the boogeyman has been a universal element of human culture, appearing in countless forms across generations. At its core, it reflects humanity's enduring tradition of storytelling, blending cautionary tales with imaginative narratives to instill moral lessons and ensure safety. Through these rich and interconnected traditions, the modern holiday of Christmas has evolved, carrying with it echoes of ancient pagan celebrations that honored the rhythms of nature and the promise of renewal. All right, part 1 done.
Done.
So, Jeff, I know you have things to say about Saturnalia.
Oh, I got a lot I could say about Saturnalia. Are you going to get more into that, or? Oh, okay. Wow. I could talk for 4.5 hours about Saturnalia.
And
But
go.
I was just gonna say, all right. Oh no,
Right.
please don't do that.
Well, it's just like the animal sacrifice thing that usually, and in this particular case, comes from actual human sacrifice, and then they transition more into animal sacrifice because obviously you can't just be slaying your people all the time. It doesn't look good. But
Also, you run out of
yeah,
people.
yeah, and it's interesting, like the concept of doing these rituals and burning. What was it that they were burning to?
It was mistletoe and holly,
Right,
and the Yule logs.
cast away the dark and bring back the light. I talk about that a lot in my show, that they're the Saturn. There's like the Saturn death cult that I think is a big chunk of what people call the Illuminati, right? The people who run the world. They're not necessarily worshiping like like Saturnalia. It's not the same. It's more of a cult offshoot of that. It's like this Saturn death cult, and their whole idea is that they're doing these rituals and these cullings of the population on Earth to bring back like a golden age back, eons ago. But it's interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting. Jeff or Jacob, how about all this paganism, dude?
I mean, I have no qualms with this. I know that Catholicism, when it was embraced in Rome, I believe the story was it was Constantine was the Roman emperor at the time, and he was losing all of his generals to Christianity because when they were persecuting the early church, they would take Christians and they'd feed them to lions and they would throw them off of cliffs and all sorts of stuff, and they couldn't get these guys to say that they didn't believe in Christ because at the time you were to declare Caesar of Rome as your god, right? And so if you didn't declare him as your god, then you were executed because, they couldn't have that. So he was losing all of his top generals and folks in his military to Christianity because no matter how many of these Christians they threw off of cliffs one after another, they refused to renounce their faith in Christ. And so their generals started just being like, wow, I mean, I don't know if I do that for my faith in, the emperor. So they started turning over to Christianity. And because he was losing touch with all of his top brass, he decided that Christianity was going to become the religion of Rome. And that's when you get a lot of, there's clearly a difference between Christianity and Catholicism. I know that's kind of a touchy subject. I think one of the most obvious differences is that we don't, confess to priests, and for Protestants, we don't confess to priests, and we don't, pray to the Virgin Mary to intercede for us. But another thing is the Ten Commandments, catechism, they remove the second of the Ten Commandments, which is that you shall have no graven images or idols. They remove the second one and they split the 10th, which says not to covet your neighbor's wife and not to covet your neighbor's items. So they make those, so there's still 10 commandments, but they split the 10th one into two parts and remove the second one, because if you go into any Catholic church, there's, idols everywhere. It's not just like a Protestant church where there's a cross on the wall, statues of Mary, there's statues of Jesus, there's all sorts of things. I've been at a Catholic mass with my grandparents, and they were literally lining up to kiss the feet of the statue of Jesus. I mean, I know it's all symbolism, but still, so there's differences and stuff, and I think that a lot of that, oh, geez, I fell off my thing. A lot of that might come from the early Roman influence of, their acceptance of Christianity, where they didn't entirely remove all of their pagan beliefs. Instead, they incorporated it into their Christian beliefs, which is different from, say, like way back in the day, a Christian missionary ran into Hawaii where they were worshiping trees and things like that. And so they chopped down the trees and set them on fire, or like threw them into a volcano. And they're like, okay, now what? Where's your God? And they're like, okay, well, you're right. There's no power here. Instead, they incorporated it deeply into that. And that's why you get a lot of the Christmas celebrations these days that, seem to have a lot of pagan roots. And obviously Jesus Christ, there's plenty of historians and archaeologists that aren't Christians, that aren't religious, that are atheists, in fact, but they say that Jesus existed. He was a person, he had a following. He was executed by the Romans at the plea of the Jewish Sanhedrin because he claimed to be God, and they said that that was blasphemous, and the Romans were occupying the area at the time, and they carried out all the capital punishments. So, but at the time of Christ's birth, these pagan civilizations didn't exist. England, Scotland, the Norse, they all came way afterwards, and they became that through hunter-gatherers civilizations, right? But I think that the paganism element of believing that basically and this is, goes like pantheism goes into what the Native Americans in large believed, where everything is God, or the spirit of the God is in the rocks and the trees and all this sort of stuff. And we all have this sort of element around us, right, where we're all God, or we're all divine, or something like that, right? Or they worship the nature. I think that in the history of humanity, people know that there is a being that's higher than them, and they've been seeking that out. So it doesn't surprise me that civilizations that are so distant from each other in either time or place wouldn't come to the same conclusion that something is bigger and more powerful than they are, thus it should be honored and respected. And we see that played out in many different ways through the different cultures and things like that. So yeah, I have no qualms with any of this sort of stuff. I mean, it all makes sense to me.
Right on. Good stuff.
Why are you booing me in the chat, bro?
Because
not?
you're lame.
Why not?
What did
for
I
real.
Everyone
do?
knows you're lame, Jeff.
What didn't you do, Jeff? What didn't you do? Answer that.
Never mind. Put your booze away. He has a cat. Good stuff.
All right, you guys ready to move on to the second section?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's learn about some folklores and some creatures. Yule folklore and mythical creatures. As we've discussed, Yule is rich with legends and traditions, many of which carry a darker edge. Among these tales is a story of the Yule cat, Yolek uterin, a gigantic black feline that stalked the snowy forests of Iceland's mountains. This fearsome creature was said to prey on those who failed to receive new clothes of sufficient quality during the season of giving, a sign they had not worked hard enough during the fall harvest. Watching through windows on the night of the giving, the Yule cat would seize and devour its unfortunate victims. Over time, this terrifying legend evolved into a symbol of vigilance, promoting the safety and well-being of children. In Scandinavia, Yule brought the figure of the Yule goat, Jolkbukten, often presented by straw sculptures displayed in towns and cities. The Yule goat, also called the Yule buck, symbolized joy and gift-giving during the holiday season. While its origins remain unclear, some believe it is tied to the Norse god Odin, whose chariot was pulled by two goats, Tangrisnir and Tangrjostr. In Icelandic lore, Grela, a mountain-dwelling troll, descended during the solstice to devour misbehaving children. Her 13 mischievous sons, the Yule lads, added another layer to these legends. These pranksters would visit homes over the 13 days leading to Yule, leaving gifts and shoes left on windowsills for well-behaved children, or a rotten potato for those who misbehaved. Each Yule lad had a signature prank. Sheep coat Clod ate yew berries from sheep sheds. Gollywbuck stole cow milk. Stubby took from food pans. Spoon Licker and Pot Scraper did exactly as their name suggests. Bowl Licker stole bowls from under beds. Door Slammer banged doors at night. Skyr Gobbler devoured yogurt. Sausage Swiper, Window Peeper, Meat Hook, and Candle Beggar rounded out this mischievous crew. Other sinister creatures of pagan lore include bogies and boggles. Shadowy fairy-like beings, bogies targeted naughty children, sometimes dragging them to the devil himself, while boggles preyed on criminal adults. Both were described as humanoid shadows and are thought to have inspired modern tales of poltergeists, shadow people, and black phantom dogs. A chilling Yule myth is the Wild Hunt, a ghostly procession led by Odin atop his skeletal steed, accompanied by spectral warriors like the Einrehar and the Valkyries. Odin hunted mortals who failed to find refuge. This legend may have been inspired by celestial phenomenon such as mysterious lights in the sky, which could have been interpreted as Odin's warband. Another figure tied to the Wild Hunt is Frau Perkta, a witch-like character who led spirits of the dead. Unlike modern witch tropes, Perkta targeted young women who failed her standards of sewing and household cleanliness, punishing them during their ominous march. Yule's folklore is a fascinating tapestry of joy, caution, and terror, blending ancient pagan beliefs with seasonal celebrations. Whether through the Yule Cat, the pranks of the Yule Lads, or the ominous specter of the Wild Hunt, these stories continue to captivate and remind us of the depth of human imagination during the darkest times of the year. For a deeper dive into these legends, check out episode 67 of our show, where we explore the story of Krampus, the dark counterpart to Santa Claus. From its connection to the Yule goat to its fearsome appearance, the Krampus embodies the balance of light and dark, central to Yule mythology. Special thanks to Jake for his incredible sound effects and atmosphere music done during the intro to that episode.
You're welcome. So you mean to tell me that bowl liquor is stealing chamber pots?
Yep.
There's
No.
bowl under a
Oh,
bed except a chamber pot.
No shit. Google this. I had to do it too because I actually thought that they were talking about piss pots too. So apparently it was so cold then that they wouldn't get up out of their bed to put their food away because they would eat in their beds. So that they would put the bowl with its scraps stuck to the side under their bed until morning until they can take care of them then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's still in chamber pots. You can say whatever you want.
Well, meat hooker.
Yeah, right. Meat hooker. Hooking all the meats. Did you ever see, gosh, what was it? Do you watch Marvel movies? There was 2 goats in the last one.
Did you just ask him if he's... Never mind.
Well, I don't know. He likes
What kind of stupid
mythology
question
and
is that?
stuff. But I mean,
No.
Jeff, you know, the 2 goats that was it Thor Ragnarok? Maybe?
No, I've never seen it.
Or
I don't watch
the
Marvel
next
movies
one?
either.
Well, never mind then. You guys are worthless.
Yeah. Say it for the community. Tell the people. I'm gonna go get a beer. You talk about Marvel.
The 2 goats, you pronounce them so well. Tangrisner and Tanjoster. I want to say those were the goats that were represented in, I think it was Thor Ragnarok. Maybe a different one, the screaming goats that they got. Thor and whatever the
Peter
STEM
says
guy's
it's Thor,
name.
Love, and Thunder.
It's Thor, Love, and Thunder. That's it. Yeah, that's funny. The
Didn't
screaming
even know
goats.
that existed.
You know, the thing that I have an issue with is when, and I understand what happened here, is like paganism, right?
Good beer.
Paganism is not a thing. It's so many things from different tribes,
Right.
different,
Yeah.
Yep.
you know, all these. So, you know, you can't honestly distill it down to like, here's some things that pagans believed, right? Because it's not necessarily the case. Unfortunately, like all of that history has just been wiped away, or a good chunk of it has been just wiped away.
Well, I don't know if it's been wiped away versus it wasn't just written down. It got passed
Sure.
down through oral traditions and just upbringing. And then eventually with a lot of these places like Norway and you know, the like where the Vikings and stuff came from, it got taken over by Christian or Catholicism, right? And so it kind of got left in the dust, but none of this stuff was like written down. So people are kind of doing a lot of guesswork. Basically, like the Vikings show, you'd assume by the Vikings show or Leif Erikson, that show, Vikings Valhalla on Netflix, that Vikings wore braided hair. But from the 3 examples that we have from images and an actual Viking, you know, person that that has been discovered through archaeology, that's not the case. There's actually no historical evidence that they actually, you know, shaved, you know, kept the top long, shaved the sides, and braided it into a French braid. That's just not a thing, right? But it's only popular by the show from Netflix.
Yeah, it's just pop culture and shit.
So it's just like,
definitely.
you know, so it's like, I think a lot of the stuff is guesswork because none of it got actually written down because it was
Of
all
course.
just this is the way we
I
live,
think
you know.
part of it is that none of it got written. A lot of it didn't get written down. But we have to agree. You must agree with me here that there was a clear effort back in history at some point for a lot of these tribes and these like what you would consider like pagan beliefs, right, to be like literally eradicated and to be either, if not assimilated with the new, the way, right, the Christian way of
Sure,
the
the new
time,
belief, yeah.
right, if not to be assimilated and tweaked in some ways. Some of those cultures are just completely gone, right? And some of the
Sure, yeah.
and a lot of those stories must be of the people, the soldiers, the men who went to these far off places, right? And they just encountered these unknown tribes that had these unknown beliefs, right? And after whatever happened, they came back and said, "Hey man, these people believe that there's elves that scare your children, man." And people are like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, that's what they believed." And then, sure enough, those people aren't there anymore, right? So it's like,
I think the problem is that the way that humanity as a whole conquered and eradicated other civilizations or pulled them into their own. So you can see that with the Romans, you can see that with the
mhm.
Attila the Hun, you can see that with
Oh yeah, like everybody's
everybody did it, but it wasn't until you got to this generation of technological advancements where we actually care about history. And that's what the problem is. No one cared about the
sure.
history. No one cared about the cultural history of like, let's, explore or let's preserve these people's way of life, their temples, their relics, their
Yeah,
whatever,
literally nobody
to
gave a
to
shit
study
about
them.
that.
No one cared about
Yeah,
any of that stuff until you got into the modern age. So that's what the problem is. People were just conquering left and right, assimilating into their religions left and right, whatever it may have been. Taking slaves, taking servants, then being conquered by other nations, right? Things like that. But no one really took the time to be like, well, wait a second, maybe we should study this. I wonder where these people came from. They were just so envisioned with conquest, it didn't matter. And so that's really where you get. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it was intentional for the idea of stamping it out, but more
sure.
so of just like, we need to get rid of everything that they believe in and everything that makes them them so that they can become us.
Yeah, and that's
Not so
always what
much
it's just.
a wiping the slate clean and let's have humanity know information on these people. It probably
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that logic, but you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I don't, and I'm not saying that it was done like necessarily in that type of nefarious way. It was done in
Sure.
another type of nefarious way, right?
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
and I'm
Definitely.
also not saying it in like the way that woke culture might represent these types of arguments. I'm just stating like a fact. Like, hey, it's unfortunate that we don't know what a lot of these beliefs were, right? So like when Jeremy's listing off, and I know Jeremy, he obviously went through a lot to get all of these different things and all that, but it's just like at the same time, each not I'm not even gonna say each one of those, but there's a lot of those that are just like whole different religions and cultures. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not just like what when people run around, they're just like, oh, that's some paganism, right? Because it is just such a broad brush and a broad word, as Skeeter was saying in the chat. It's just like it irks me. It rubs me the wrong way. Is the
Well,
only thing.
paganism, the idea of paganism could encompass, it could encompass the Picts before they became the English. It could encompass
Well, hold on,
all
because
the
there
tribes
is a
of
there is a
Scotland
Like
and
what's
definition.
Ireland.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the actual definition
The
of the word pagan?
the definition of the word paganism or pagan, the practice, it's an umbrella term used to describe religious beliefs or faithful beliefs that believe in a polytheistic system based on nature.
So basically everything up until monotheism, right? And that's the whole point that I'm trying to
Correct.
make here. I'm not pointing the finger necessarily, and I know you're not thinking that I am. I'm just for anybody else
No, I
listening,
do.
really.
I do, for
I'm
sure.
not pointing the finger at Christianity like you did this. I'm just saying like because of monotheism, thank you for using the terms here because that helps. Because of monotheism, take your pick of the big three. It just kind of that wiped away like 80-90%. I don't know how much information just got completely lost to history because it's just
less the cultures were able to survive an extended period of time. So say like Hinduism. Hindus or Hindi has been around for a really long time. I think Hindi is actually the language, but Hinduism has been around for a really long time. And I think they have something like 80 million gods and goddesses. But we have that information because that culture has been around for so long in India, right? It wasn't conquered by another civilization. Like, I know that before Muhammad came, the Middle Easterners, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head the exact region, but I know that they believed in like the moon god and stuff like that. And then he told them about Allah, right? And he turned them into a monotheistic, well, the whole area into a monotheistic religion versus I don't know if it was just the moon god or if it was other gods as well, but cultures that have existed for an awfully long time, their history is preserved, but small cultures like hunter-gatherer tribes, early Norwegian tribes, what is it? It's Norway. What Dutch cultures? It wasn't just Norway that was the Vikings, right? But
It was all Scandinavia.
Scandinavia, but what did that
Scandinavia
encompass?
is a northern region.
Right.
I mean, I think it covers everything from Norway, Switzerland. I mean, I think it shoots over to like Greenland, Iceland.
Yeah.
All.
But they seem to have very similar beliefs in, well, if we're talking about Yule, that was their belief, right?
Yep.
You couldn't attribute Yule folklore and mythological creatures related to Yule to the Native Americans. That's not what they believed, right? They had pantheism or monotheism, but it was in relation to nature, and they had it in relation to like animals and things like that. It was completely separate from what these people believed. So although paganism, I agree, is such a huge, broad brushstroke upon all of the cultures that kind of believe the same sort of a thing, I agree with you, Jeff, that, well, in this circumstance, we are focused on Yule, but it should be, I don't know if that umbrella term then has subsections of different, cultures and things like that.
So, okay, so there is a difference between paganism and the Native American tribes. So the Native American tribes, they practiced animism, I believe it's called. Animism is the belief in, it's not animals, it's that everything has a soul or an essence, if you will. Right. So where pagans specifically believed in nature and natural beings, natives believed in animism, which was everything. The storm had a soul, the boulders, the trees, the wind, everything had a soul. Everything had an essence. I hope that clears that up.
It's interesting to me. I don't know. I'm of the belief that that might be the case, and there are some scientific studies that are happening currently that are starting to kind of show that in ways. So it's interesting to me that type of thinking was lost, is the best way I can put it, right? It was just lost for so long. And now we're coming back to it with advanced technologies. And that's one of the things that I always wonder about with advanced ancient civilizations. I don't necessarily think they were flying around in spaceships. I just think that they were advanced in other ways that we're not necessarily considering, right? Maybe they were using vibrations and sound technologies as like one of their primary energy sources somehow. I don't know, but yeah, it's just super interesting.
You guys ready to finish this up?
I think that the reason why this has died out so much is if you give everything in nature that sort of, everything in nature includes us. So if you give everything in nature that sort of like divine spark and say that everything is divine, right? Sort of stuff. And then you see things like, people murdering each other or serial killers or people stealing and things like that. It kind of takes away from that. And so I saw in the chat, Skeeter said, Christianity is saying that everything is demons and evil, so get rid of it. I mean, you could, but something has to be true. There is a truth out there. It's not everything is true because everything contradicts each other. So there has to be a truth. So if Christianity is true, then that's the way it is. Islam is true, then that's the way it is. Judaism is true, that's the way it is. Hinduism is true, that's the way it is. And if pantheism or Yule beliefs, right, the Thor, Odin, all that stuff, the Valkyries is true, then that's the way it is. Everyone else is wrong except for that thing that is true, right? And I think that there's a lot to be said about Christianity staying around for so long, despite the persecution that Christians have had throughout the years. And it's probably a lot to do with the fact that people were proven wrong, that, everyone has a divine spark until someone walks into a store and starts shooting people. Well, not that guy. Well, why not?
Free will.
Well, a lot of people don't believe in free will. I've met several people that don't.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to stick to that, if you're going to say that that's the case, that,
well,
everything
but saying that person's God and is all good,
I don't
that person goes and starts killing people.
That's too new age for me. I don't think that whole we're all God. Everything is. I don't.
That
to
is
me, that's a
definitely
little
new
too
age.
age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, too new
Talking
age
about the collective consciousness kind of thing.
What I'm thinking is just more like everything. Look, even if you look at it from a monotheistic perspective, right? Like, from my perspective, is that if God created everything in the universe, then everything must have at least the slightest little touch of that essence in it somehow, right? It's been created by the creator, so it has to have something. And that something might be whatever the word is that we don't have a word for, that ether-ish type thing.
Why can't the creator just have a creation, and the creation be the creation, and the creator be the creator? Like, if I made something out of clay, that doesn't mean that my essence is inside of that thing. It's just a thing that I made.
Sure. I'm not saying that it has to be as important or as cherished or valued as.
Well, I think what you're saying is the soul.
The soul. I'm trying not to say the soul is the point, right?
You're saying it.
No, I'm saying that I don't think every molecule has a soul, but I think that every molecule is somehow tied to like a greater consciousness.
From the smallest to the biggest. Yeah, you're probably right. But that doesn't mean that they're divine.
I'm not saying, I don't make that argument.
Rather that they deserve to be worshipped.
I don't make that argument either.
So that's the thing. That's the
Some
difference.
People do, yeah.
We've got a little question / exercise to do at the end of this episode. I think you guys think it was fun.
Okay.
And then it just, for some reason, came up during that little back-to-back you guys had.
Bet.
You guys ready to hear about the big man?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
The fat man.
The big fat man. Santa. Santa Claus, the beloved figure of modern Christmas, draws his origins from St. Nicholas, also known as Sinterklaas in Dutch tradition. Born in 3rd century Greece, Nicholas inherited great wealth after the tragic loss of his parents. Deeply inspired by his Christian faith, he devoted his life to helping those in need, living as a reflection of Jesus Christ's teachings. Nicholas became the Bishop of Myra, earning renown for his generosity, love for children, and care for sailors. Stories of his kindness became legendary, including one where he anonymously helped a poor man pay the dowries required to marry off his 3 daughters. The man, desperate to secure better lives for his daughters, had resorted to dire measures to gather the necessary funds. Hearing of his plight, Nicholas secretly tossed sacks of gold coins through the man's window on 3 consecutive nights. On the final night, the man stayed awake to catch the mysterious benefactor. When he discovered Nicholas, he fell at his feet in gratitude, praising him as a savior. St. Nicholas's legacy inspired the celebration of St. Nicholas Day. Observed on December 6th, gift-giving became central to this feast, and traditions like leaving shoes or stockings for Nicholas to fill with gifts and sweets emerged. Over time, the practice evolved into the modern notion of rewarding good children with presents and punishing naughty ones with less pleasant surprises, such as coal. During the late Victorian era, the British figure of Father Christmas became entwined with the image of St. Nicholas. Dressed in red robes, Father Christmas symbolizes cheer, family togetherness, and nostalgia for the good old days. His popularity surged in the 17th century as a defiant emblem against the Puritan government's attempts to suppress Christmas celebrations. Long before St. Nicholas or Father Christmas, the Norse god Odin played a role in shaping the mythology of Santa Claus. Odin, often depicted with a white beard and a cloak, led the spectral wild hunt during Yule, riding his 8-legged horse Sleipnir. Norse traditions included hiding from Odin during the hunt to avoid his gaze, a concept echoed in Santa's rule of don't catch him in the act, or no gifts for you. As Yule was moved to coincide with the Christian celebration of Jesus' birth on December 25th, the traditions of St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, and Odin merged. Nicholas contributed the spirit of gift-giving and love for children. Father Christmas brought the red robe and joyful family image, and Odin added the mysterious rules of Christmas Eve. The modern image of Santa Claus owes much to artist Hodon Sundblom, who was commissioned by the Coca-Cola Company in the 90s. Sundblom's portrayal of Santa as a jolly, plump man with rosy cheeks, a fluffy beard, and the iconic red suit became the definitive look for Santa. Before this, Santa was often described as a small, elf-like figure, a far cry from the grandfatherly image we know today. Today's Santa Claus is a culmination of centuries of legends and traditions, from the charitable deeds of St. Nicholas to the nostalgic cheer of Father Christmas and the mystical undertones of Odin's wild hunt. Thanks to artistic imagination and cultural evolution, Santa now stands as a universal symbol of joy, generosity, and the magic of Christmas. All done.
Skeeter, I saw that in the chat. He said you can find a part of St. Nick's hip bone in Chicago, held by the Shrine of All Saints in St. Martha of Bethany Church, Morton Grove, Illinois, USA.
Really?
I find that interesting because that's something that the Catholic churches have that the Protestant churches don't. We don't excavate the bones of, they say the saints, but according to the Bible, everyone who believes in Christ is considered a saint. We don't excavate the bones of people and put them on display or put them in places where people can go and view them and stuff like that. I find that to be really interesting. I've seen that before. I'm just like, ooh, weird. Just honestly, just throw me in a garbage heap. I'll be good. Throw me on a garbage barge. I'll be fine. It's really interesting. Or you see the catacombs in Rome where they're filled with the bones of saints and things like that. Like that's just wild to me that
You know
they would
what's
be on
wild to
display
me is
like
that
that.
you're the second person today that's talked to me about the catacombs in the Vatican with all the bodies in it.
Sounds like you got to look it up. You got to do an
That's
episode on it.
Yeah, I definitely should. I'm aware of this. I've never seen it in person, obviously, but
Skeeter
it's
says
just
road trip, boys.
interesting. It's interesting to me that it's such a random thing that two totally separate people would bring this up to me on the same day.
Well, Skeeter brought it up.
Maybe something's going to go down.
Maybe.
Coincidences.
His bones
don't
are in 3
exist.
different places. His bones got stolen from his original burial place, Skeeter says. It's just weird. It's like,
So would you guys?
That's another thing I always wonder about too, right? With some of these artifacts, is like, how do we know? How do we know it's not just Frank?
You don't know. Someone
Exactly.
knows whether
DNA
it's true or
testing,
not, but you don't know.
Well, the people who really know are probably long dead by now, right? So nobody really knows. That's the problem, right? Because even if you dig up like some, because a lot of these artifacts get dug up in just random places, right? They're not necessarily in like tombs and stuff. It's just like, you dig under a house somewhere and it's just like there's something there, right? But it's just that you don't know what grave robbers or culture came after that found this cool thing and was like, let me throw my bodies in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't really know. That's another problem I have with a lot of what we consider history. A lot of people think that there's like mummies in the pyramids, right? Like that's just a common thought. I feel like people think that they found mummies. They found whatever the pharaoh was at the time. They found him in the pyramid. No, bro, there was none. Never.
You really
It's
think
just
so?
like,
You think so?
I think so. No, I don't think there was any bodies ever recovered out of the pyramid that were like mummified pharaohs. No, I'm sure there might have been like skeletal remains of like grave robbers or somebody who got murked in there at some point. But
They have biological samples that they took from esophaguses.
There's no esophaguses inside
I
the
mean,
Great Pyramid.
sarcophagus.
Sarcophagi.
Whatever.
But that's the problem, is that you don't actually know if that person in the sarcophagus is the pharaoh or if it was just some person at the time.
If there was even and in this case, I'm talking about with like the pyramids as this example, there was no sarcophagus. Yeah.
What
You're
evidence
one of
do
the
you have
people
of
that
this?
thinks that you look it up.
So it
I'm
says
going to look it up. You have the evidence.
right
You
here.
have the burden of proof. You tell us.
Just
Do your
Google
homework
it.
for you.
No sarcophagus. Jeremy's on it right now. I don't have a
You
keyboard.
made
bro.
the claim.
So
you
there
have to
were-
give us evidence.
There were bodies found, but none of them appear to have been pharaohs. Yes, some mummies and other burial equipment have been found in pyramids, but not all pyramids contain bodies. Then, while no complete mummy of a pharaoh was found, remains of some were, including organs, bones, and mummified remains. So
Yes,
there were some remains found of pharaohs, but not complete bodies.
because structures, right, which I believe were built way before dynastic Egyptians, right? The dynastic Egyptians inherited these massive structures,
obviously.
whatever it was, right? So the dynastic Egyptians inherited these buildings, and of course, when their pharaohs and important people died, they went to these magnificent structures that they had these grand stories about how they
Yeah. And then they just tore them all apart and threw all their visceral everywhere. That's what that thing just
all
told me.
kinds of, who knows, man? I mean, you don't know, like, dude, there was all kinds of crazy human sacrifice happening back in the day and like all kinds of shit. So who knows how they were performing their, mourning rituals when they were bringing their dead pharaohs' remains into these massive structures. Like, but I'm saying the point is they weren't built as like tombs for pharaohs as a lot of people think.
Skeeter says in the chat, DNA testing was just done over the past few years, proving they were all from the same body. The pyramid is a power plant, and they were from the first civilization.
So the pyramid is a power plant. That's an episode in its own. We can't go down that rabbit hole right now. That is a very interesting topic. Maybe we'll cover that.
I
someday.
like that theory, but I like the idea that it was more of a long-range communication device.
I also believe that it was as well. Like a very long-range communication device. Like
intergalactic or something.
Like that.
Or at least interstellar.
I find it extremely interesting that they're perfectly aligned with the stars of Orion's belt. That's so fucking cool.
And with, was it the gravitational or the true north, east, southwest of the Earth?
Only at certain cycles in the equinox, right? The wobble of the Earth, which happens what is it, every 12,000 something years, whatever the number is. Don't quote me on that. But every cycle,
everybody.
Every cycle it lines up with these stars and all these alignments and stuff, right? So the thing is, you could go back to like roughly the Younger Dryas period, and they kind of lined up, right? But then the problem is like there wasn't jungle or anything there, right? But if you go back to the previous cycle before that, so now you're going back like 20, 30,000 years ago, way before they think, there was jungle in the Sahara, right? There's all this stuff that could have potentially like brought a smart civilization to build these types of things, right? So that's my whole thing about like, these things were way older, man. Those pyramids, the Sphinx was probably a lion facing Leo 30,000 years ago, right? And then 12,000 years ago, or
that's interesting.
Whatever, hunter-gatherers that survived the Younger Dryas, they stumble across this thing. They know about it forever and ever and ever. And then dynastic Egyptians 5,000-6,000 years ago are like, let's build shit around here, man. Let's make this our home and like actually make this a society here.
Kind of like in Minecraft.
Yeah, man.
You find a villager settlement and you build right next to it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And then before you know it, you've got shops.
Steal and pillage.
You've got shops and you got mob farms and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
They were just slaughtering cats. Right.
That's right.
Yep. So what do you guys think of the Christmas episode?
I hate Christmas, man. It's my least favorite holiday.
Really?
People are so selfish.
I'm the Grinch, dude. I'm not a fan. I'm not festive with Christmas. Like, I hate the fucking Christmas music. You know what it is? My mom ruined it for me. She had this Christmas tree when I was a kid forever.
Dude. I hate Christmas music too.
Yeah, she had these little bells on the tree. that would always like ring the songs, like Jingle Bells and all these songs, and she just like let it ride, man. And I'd be like, bro, and now I just hate it. I hate it all.
Bro, I
I
love
hate
Christmas.
I hate going to the stores before Halloween has even happened and there's Christmas decorations. I'm like, I hate the materialistic sort of thing. I hate how frustrated people get. It's like
Yeah, the episode was great.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
It's funny, dude.
I love Christmas. You guys are nuts.
Christmas
Love
is
it.
whack, bro. I'm way too metal for Christmas, bro. The
Yeah.
August Burns,
I'll
For
take
metal,
metal
yeah.
for this.
Red. August Burns Red put out a really good metal album. I like that one. You know, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, like that's cool stuff. But you know, it's very limited.
Yeah.
I like Christmas dubstep and techno.
Nope. I love everything about Christmas. Absolutely everything.
I
Love
like
it.
being
I
in
like
an
the
area
snow.
where it snows, where we can actually have a white, powdery, snowy Christmas. That's cool.
Yeah, even when they say it's not supposed to be snowing at all.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
All right. So apparently, well, it's been snowing here for like 3
Get
days.
this, Jeff. You're gonna love this.
It's been snowing here for like 3 days, and it wasn't forecasted. It was snowing all day today, and it wasn't forecasted. Apparently, there's a factory here in Menominee, Wisconsin, that I
Particle
think
glass.
what they pump steam into the air, and that condensates and turns it into, because it's so cold, it's like 7 degrees, turns it into precipitation, and then it snows on us. They're
Yeah,
literally
so
cloud seeding.
it literally sends snow through the entire Chippewa Valley. And when you look at satellite images of the area, you can see it coming from the smokestacks of Cardinal Glass here in Menominee. And from what I understand, because I have an employee that was working with me today who used to work there. I talked to him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, so what they do is they melt down the glass, and sometimes some of the moisture from the glass or the pellets that they get will escape, and it goes out the stack, and it causes moisture to be injected into the atmosphere." And I'm like, do you think that the government is pumping chemicals into that stack? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, good.
Well, if it's been snowing for what, 3 days, you said?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a lot of particulate to be going up in those smokestacks to be turning into snow, number one. I don't think the government would be using a private smokestack to just like inject chemicals. That's ridiculous. However,
I mean, they apparently use private planes for it, okay?
Touche.
yeah, but not the company. You said it's a glass manufacturer?
Yeah.
Right, like it's a glass manufacturer. The government doesn't have to like just like have this glass manufacturer facade and they don't have to do that. They literally have funding to just build a fucking building and be like, yo, let's do cloud seeding from this manufacturer, like this building that we don't have to hide. Like it's not a fucking cloak and dagger situation. It's literally public information. They're doing it right now. It's not a secret. So they don't have to be like, oh, just use the glass company and we'll fucking do it in the smoke. No, it's none of that, dude.
Here, hold on. I'm going
That's
to.
ridiculous. That's like a straw man argument for. It's
Hey,
like a straw man conspiracy argument, and you know.
This is from theweathernetwork.com. There you go. Wish I can zoom in on this a little bit, but
Can't really see that.
Oh, look better, okay? Look better. But right here. So Jake, this is if you're heading north on B, like past the like the Love Station and stuff. And then here is us, and this is the plume that it creates right here. Look at that thing.
Yeah, that's a lot more than just like, hey man, one part per million that we send out there has got some precipitation. No way, dude.
Look at this.
And if that is the case, then we're getting gassed by every fucking manufacturing plant. You know what I mean? Like
See right here?
there's
5
something
to 10
else.
centimeters of snow from factory steam.
So here's what you
Great.
should do. Here's what you should do to get to the bottom of this. Find out what is right around that area that's not that factory that's also doing stuff, right? And I guarantee you there's probably a facility.
My
Yeah.
factory, the one I worked at.
Yeah, but there's probably another facility somewhere that is actually doing some sort of, snowpack augmentation, cloud seeding with a ground-based system somewhere in that area.
Oh, I'm sure. Like if Whitney goes to Red Wing Airport tomorrow and there's snow on the ground, then there's obviously and it's not forecasted and it's snowing. There's obviously another plant that's doing the same thing. Like, it's wild. I thought this was all baloney until it actually happened over here, and I'm just like, what? That's nuts.
Isn't it crazy? Don't eat the snow. It's all glass.
It's all glass. It's a movie set. It's all wet paper.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you say, guys? Think that's good?
I think that's good. Wait, what was your exercise?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of moved along from that topic, but I guess we can
go back to it.
come back to it. So a long time ago, CJ and I did an episode on human consciousness.
No.
And okay, well then never mind then. Okay. So we were talking about specifically individual atoms with consciousness, right? I remember Jeff had mentioned that. Not that he believed it, but just that concept was brought up. So the question that I had posed in that was a question that was given to me by one of my college professors way back in the day. He set off this hypothetical question of human consciousness, right? Let's say I'm going to use Jake and Jeff for an example, right? Jake and Jeff, if I set you guys in chairs and put you guys back to back, knocked you guys out, took out your brains and swapped them, would Jeff be in Jake's body and Jake be in Jeff's body?
Yes.
Jeffrey? Okay. So why do you say no?
Because I don't necessarily believe that you are just your physical meat vessel.
Where is your consciousness?
I believe that it's somewhere located in, if I had to pinpoint a specific place, I would probably say maybe the pineal gland.
So in the brain.
In the brain, sure.
So if I took your brain out and put your brain into Jake's skull, would you see the world as Jeffrey in Jake's body?
No, my brain would be in Jake's body, but
your pineal gland would also be in Jake's body.
Yes, but I would be still within the same structure of my brain, right? So like, okay, so you're in your house. Are you your house?
No, but if I go into another house,
Okay.
my consciousness will go into that house.
Yeah, but you are not that house. You are still you.
Right, but we're talking about consciousness. We're not talking about the body.
And what I'm saying is that your consciousness is not necessarily tied to the meat vessel that is the body.
Right. That's what he's saying. So your brain gets transplanted into a vat of liquid. You would still be you inside of that vat of liquid. You would just have less things to do because you wouldn't be able to do anything except for exist and think.
Sure. Okay. So yes, I guess if you want to get technical, maybe it's a semantic argument. Yes, my brain and my consciousness would reside now inside Jake's body. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I would be inside of Jeff's body. My voice might be different. My physical appearance might be different, but I would still be me.
Right.
The semantics is that it wouldn't matter. Like from a large term perspective, it wouldn't matter because I would still be me, but I would just look different. As if I was in a horrible fire.
Agreed.
Where I went deaf, my ears were burned off, my eardrums were blown out, my facial figures were completely destroyed. I look like leather from, the top to the bottom. I would still be me consciously, though I might have different experiences from then on, being like I couldn't hear, I was deaf now, or maybe I didn't have fingers or hands that worked, right? Things like that. I would still be me.
I think you guys think a little too deep, right? We're just in an imaginary world
where everything.
The
wrong two guys about this question.
Okay, all right, fine. Then I'm going to continue.
Deep thinkers.
We're going to continue down this path. Okay. The next phase of this exercise is if I did the same thing, but I did it one cell at a time. So I took one cell out of Jeff's brain, and I took a cell out of Jake's brain, and I swapped them. And I did that completely. At what point would your consciousness transfer from your body to the other?
Once all of them were completed, I believe.
So you're saying that 99.9% of your brain is over in Jake's body, but that one little percentage is still in Jeff. But with 99.9% of Jake's brain, you're still in Jeff's body?
Not necessarily. It's complicated because, like, again, this is not your consciousness is not necessarily tied to the meat body, and the physical brain is part of the meat body, right? So it's not like if you took every
Right, but
particle of matter over there,
so
not necessarily, but
let
there's
me ask you another
particles.
question that goes along
Yeah,
with what you're saying. If I cut
yeah.
open the brain, if I cut open your brain, does your consciousness escape? Okay.
Well, perhaps it depends on how you do it, right?
So
This is
technically it would
again,
be infused into the meat particles of the brain.
like if I cut your brain open right now with like an axe, like violently, for instance, yes, your consciousness will leave your brain.
I don't know
Touche.
enough about the brain and the different functions of like the frontal lobe and the all the stuff to make an accurate assumption of at what point your consciousness or your soul would transfer into another portion, or you would be into like you said, transferring one at a time. I would suddenly then wake up in Jeff's body with my consciousness. I don't know enough about the brain to make an accurate assumption of that.
Well, this exercise isn't necessarily to have you give me a concrete answer, right? It's an exercise to get you thinking about possibilities, right? Professor Stevenson, actually, he passed away a few years after I was in his class. Guy was amazing at making you use your brain, right? He was
Sure.
absolutely
Deep thought.
incredible at it. Yeah, and he had these exercises all the time. I mean, I can always bring up a couple of them that he used to do, but this one always stuck with me because it was one that just literally just did not have an answer. And I've spent nights upon night upon night thinking about, let's say Jake and I were sitting back to back and a doctor said, "Okay, swap two cells. Jeremy, you still Jeremy? Jake, you still Jake? Yep. Okay, good. Then do it again. Then ask the same question. Still Jeremy? Yep. Okay, good. Do it again. Still Jeremy? Good. 6 million times down the road, and half my brain is in Jake and half my brain's in me. He leans over. Am I going to be like, yeah, man, still Jeremy? Or am I going to be like, blah, 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 not be able to speak English? Am I going to speak twice because I have half your consciousness, half my consciousness? Is it going to come out at the same time?
No, see, I think the problem is that, this is all most people assume that your consciousness is tied to like this 3D reality, this realm, this dimension, however you want to put it, right? I don't think that's the case. I think your consciousness, your soul, it's the same thing, really. And I think that, it's tied to another plane of existence, a spiritual realm, as well as this one. So, like, regardless of what you do with the brain, the body, anything like that, the consciousness slash soul is, it's not tied to this.
So
hold on a second. Skeeter says in the chat, you'd still be sensing as you would. I disagree, because who knows? Maybe Jeff is actually colorblind, or maybe I'm actually colorblind and I don't realize it. So if we could do a total brain transplant, then who's to say? Because it would just be a brain with, as Jeff says, like a meat casing, right? Well, he would then have my eyes, my ears, things like that. It's actually a proven thing that not every human being actually sees the same tones of colors as other human beings. So when I see electric blue, and that's my favorite color, which it is,
we got a
someone
first time
else
chatter,
might
everybody.
see,
Sorry.
hey, welcome. It might be another
Remember wife
Jeff's
birthday
brain in my body.
10/23/93.
It might see
Hello.
another type of blue.
Yeah, I always found that very interesting. Like, what if my red is somebody else's green? How would that world look? And it's just that you guys are just so used. Is this the reason why some people just don't like certain colors, right? Is it because they're seeing my brown?
My dad, he didn't know until he was in his like mid 30s that he was colorblind.
Yeah.
He was a paramedic. He did all sorts of stuff, like crazy stuff, great career. And my mom tells this story fondly because she laughs the whole time, and he gets kind of frustrated, where she's just like, so he was going around the house saying, "Where's my green pants?" And she was like, "Russ, you don't have any green pants." He's like, "Yes, I do. I wear them all the time. They're my favorite pants, and they're green." And he finally finds them, and he brings them up to her. She's like, "See, my green pants." And she's like, "Russ, those are blue." He had no idea he was colorblind. he can't see the color blue. He sees green.
Well, then don't they see gray? Doesn't gray colorblind see gray?
I don't know, but he
I'll
saw
have to look into that.
green instead of blue. And so he found out that he was colorblind. He went and got checked out, and sure enough, he's colorblind to blue. He can't see it. He sees green. So yeah, it would be common to him. But for you, if you transplanted your brain into his body, was seeing with his eyes, or maybe color blindness is in the brain and not the eyes, who's to say? But maybe you would see all of your blue genes as green. Or color blindness is in the brain and you would see totally fine, and he would get transplanted into your body and all of your blue genes would be green to him.
Now take that concept and expand it to like, senses that we don't even perceive, not just like your
Right.
eyesight and color, right? But
Maybe
like your
taste.
soul and like your
Jeremy doesn't.
spiritual.
Well, I mean, even taste. Jeremy doesn't like mushrooms. I love mushrooms.
I like the texture of mushrooms.
I'd go into his brain and not like mushrooms. Maybe because his tongue says he doesn't like mushrooms, or because his brain says it. So in which case I would still like mushrooms in his body, or he would be in my body and hate mushrooms,
And I think that that's also the case, again, on like another level that we just don't necessarily perceive or fully understand.
What is preference?
Like extrasensory perceptive level of the same kind of thing. So like your consciousness, like it needs to be in your body, really, in this realm.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work in another body. It's just not how it works. You blue screen, just like you foreign code in a computer, you just blue screen and shut down. But, so that's the thing, right? I don't think it works. I don't think that
I think that the mysteries of the human mind is so incredible. It's absolutely amazing. Like, what about the meat clump that's in our skull makes it have consciousness? Like, a lot of people will say, well, it's got electrical current through it.
psilocybin over hundreds of thousands of. No, I'm just kidding.
We're about to learn about that. We're about to learn about that.
Yeah.
Peter says, or are you guys saying just the brain? I hear brain and think eyes and eardrums because they're attached.
No.
I think the eyes are just viewers, ears are just hearers, noses are just smellers, and tongues are just tasters. I think most of it comes from your brain. So honestly, if I was to really think about this, I would say that if I was transplanted into Jeff's body, my brain, my consciousness into Jeff's body, and Jeff's brain and consciousness in my body, I think we would have the same likes and dislikes and food preferences and smells and color and all that sort of stuff.
The way your body's receptors are working.
Right.
That physical body's used to that.
We would be in a different vessel.
Yeah.
Just like if you put me in a robot, I would have the same taste, touch, smell, all that sort of stuff, colors, except I would be in a different body than what I started with.
Yeah, but the body would probably reject the consciousness like a surgery when you get like a new heart or liver, you reject it sometimes,
it's
the body
possible,
would probably reject a different consciousness.
Now the question of at what point cell by cell your consciousness transmits over.
Yes.
I would say that I wanted to say it's the entirety of it, but at the same point, like there have been people that have survived suicides by being shot in the head.
Literally a chunk of their brain just gone.
Head in general, and portions of their brain have been destroyed, and yet they are still them. Although they may be paraplegics now, but they're still them.
Yep.
So at what point does the brain need enough to be transferred over to still be you in this process? I have no freaking clue.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't that a fucking crazy fucking
but
question?
I mean, not really, because some of the brain is just
I think it is
just for motor skills.
No, I know, I get that.
The idea
but there
of
is like Jeff was saying, there is a section of your brain, obviously, somewhere where consciousness is held. Right. And there's a couple different theories about where the specific consciousness is held, and there's no actual real scientific proof about where that is, right? Because we have never been able to seclude it, and we never have been able to contain it and transport it. That's never been a possibility. But and there's also never been a successful brain transplant. Now, if you guys want to get into some really gross shit, there's been brain transplants, and it's had some absolutely wild outcomes that we can talk about one day.
Like
And we
now?
should. No, we can't do it right now.
You mean like
because,
young Frankenstein with the abnormal brain?
man, I'm telling you,
Here,
I, I
nerd.
I have a topic that will cover. It's going to be a Patreon topic because it's fucking intense, but I will try to track down some good books. Maybe I can look up what my old I had a really awesome psychology book
I think
from
what people get
college.
hung up on when it comes to the brain is this ancient idea that we only use 10% of our brains. But that was before we had actual brain scans where you could see people tasting something and a portion of their brain
But-
lighting up. And
Yeah.
they smell something, portion of their brain lights up, and it encompasses the entire thing. We don't use the 100% of the thing at the exact same time because part of it's for smell and taste and vision and motor senses and thinking and rationalizing and dreaming and all this sort of stuff, right? It's just like same thing where you could get a frontal lobotomy and then you're just laying in a chair like this, but you're still thinking and still processing, right? So it's like
Yeah.
your brain is using 100% of its capability, but in different portions at different time because each part of your brain is being stimulated by other things, right? Sort of stuff. I don't think that it's like we're not.
So
He loves that movie, Young Frankenstein.
So when I was back in either anatomy or psychology, I can't remember which one, we learned about the different theories of where consciousness originates from. And obviously the most common is from the brain, but there is this hypothesis called the cardiocentric hypothesis, I believe it was called, where you believe that the primary location for human consciousness is in the heart. And although there are no solid numbers to back up this information, it is believed that 15% of the population believe that the consciousness comes from the heart and not from the brain. Although when you change the pool of people being questioned, it then almost comes to almost a complete 100% when you move into the scientific community. Now, if you apply that same thing, right, and you ask people, hey, why do you believe that it comes from your brain? A lot of people will say, well, that's because that's where I perceive the world from. That is the cockpit in which my soul and my consciousness will drive this vessel into the world, right? But then people will take the exact same inputs, all of the things that they view this world, they feel this world, they taste it, hear it, smell it, whatever. But then they'll look at it and they'll say things, and this isn't a shot to flat earthers, but they'll say, oh, well, I perceive everything as it being flat, but yet all of my inputs, all of the information that's being given to me by the scientific community says that it's round. Now, I know that's not a direct argument for the concept of flat earth. Jeff, don't go crazy. Trust me, I know there's a lot outside of this. I'm just using it as an example, right? Where, you'll go to some people and you'll say, hey, does this candy taste sweet or does it taste sour? Some people will say sour, some people will say sweet, right? So it really has to come down to the way that your consciousness perceives the input of information that is being given to it.
I want to say something.
Yeah.
So I think that the amount of people that think that consciousness comes from the heart comes from a religious background in Christianity.
Really?
Because there's this belief that the saying is Jesus says, I stand at the door and knock, right? And you have to accept Jesus into your heart being your being or your consciousness. Jesus says you have to repent of your sins and believe in me. But this whole thing of like asking Jesus into your heart would spawn people to believe that their consciousness is in their heart until they get a full heart transplant and their consciousness doesn't leave their body. They wake up from a full heart transplant and they're still there. So obviously your consciousness isn't in your heart because it's just a muscle. It's like saying your buttocks is your consciousness. It's a muscle. It's a muscle that pumps, and it pumps blood, which, granted, if you get shot in the heart, you're not going to live. In the same way you get shot in so much of your brain, you're not going to live either. But it doesn't mean that your heart is your consciousness, because you could get shot in the thigh in your femoral artery and bleed to death and die. That doesn't mean your consciousness is in your thigh. But I believe it comes from a religious background of the accepting Jesus into your heart, right? The heart in this is a metaphor for you, right? It's vital to your survival, but it's you. What is you? You is your soul or your consciousness, which is not in your heart. Because if your heart gets transplanted with a pig's heart, because they can be actually, they're so, I guess, genetically similar, they could be donated. You could donate parts from a pig into your body. That doesn't suddenly make you a pig. No, it means that you're a human being with your own consciousness with a pig's heart. So it's not. So I think that's a miss or a unscientific belief by people that are religious, because that's what they've heard, so that's what they believe. Whereas if you sat them down or you showed someone with a full heart transplant, or if they got one, they would then stop believing that, because then their heart is somewhere else. Their heart's gone, right? They had heart disease. Their heart's in a bin somewhere for human
Rough.
remains, and they have someone else's heart inside of them. They're not suddenly that person, you know? So I think that would be a good way of kind of breaking that down.
I think
You
that's a
know,
similar argument to those people that say the difference between a brain, the gray matter of a brain, and the thigh tissue of like a cow that's in the supermarket is that the brain has electrical signals, bioelectrical signals running
well,
through it.
the thigh has biological signals.
Right, but
I've heard them.
that's really.
No, for real. Like when I went in to get my carpal tunnel thing,
Well,
he
no,
took
I
he took a
I believe that
needle.
they have them. Yeah.
He took a needle that was like the width of a hair that I could barely see even when I zoom in on the video, because I took a video. It was wild. And he stuck it into my hand. He stuck it in right here, and he had me flex my hand, and I could hear the electrical signals going through my muscles. He did it in my forearms. He did it in my shoulder, and my chest, my biceps, my triceps, all that sort of stuff, my traps, to see where the lockup was, essentially, where the nerves were kind of deadened or hyper active, I suppose. But I literally was hearing the electrical signals pulsing through my muscles on the monitor, and I took a video of it. Like, it's amazing, the human body. But to say that that's not the same thing that's going on in the brain is ridiculous. The only thing that's different between electrical signals going through your muscles and the signals going through your brain is that's neurons firing off.
Yes.
Right? So it's a completely different setup, although it's the same sort of thing. So we are, in fact, energy, but it's specific type of energy going through our bodies.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think of.
Neurons are your informational signal transporters, or the exchangers of information by electrical signals in your brain's gray matter. It's just it's a very interesting topic to me. That's why I have a whole section back here in my library on just psych mysteries, like the split brain thing and deja vu and all kinds of other things that we'll eventually get into that I'm not gonna say because we haven't done it yet. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's interesting.
I mean, we could go so far with this. We could say, like, if my brain was transplanted into a person who's a quadriplegic, would I be able to function that body?
No, because your
'Cause it's
physical
the
body can't. Because the electrical signals from your brain stem to your spine has been cut off, and it's a physical thing. It's a physical blockage. It's like a open in a circuit compared to something that's just
Unless it was neurological, right? There's so many factors.
Well, that's what I was
yes,
gonna say.
yeah.
Unless
So
it's like a brain thing, right?
yeah.
Like, we're talking about senses and tastes and preferences and things like that. How much of that preferences is just like your tongue is actually malfunctioning to say that this savory thing tastes gross, versus your brain telling you that I don't like this because this is my preference, right? Like, at
Yeah.
one point I would have said that mushrooms were disgusting, but then I grew up, and onions too, and then I grew up and I love mushrooms and onions, and I put them on my venison tonight, right? But so I could say that was probably my brain, but at what point do you find out that that's your tongue? That's just like, maybe you're lacking one of those 5 sensory taste buds that tastes savory. Instead, you're saying it tastes sour, right? Or something like that. Like, unless it's a neurological thing, how do we actually know? So, I mean, you could transplant my brain into a quadriplegic, and my whole brain that functions perfectly fine, as far as I know, would be able to function in that body and walk and move my arms and things like that, versus the person whose brain is transplanted in mine would still be a quadriplegic.
I think this is really what separates somebody who is like atheist or maybe agnostic versus somebody who has any type of spiritual belief.
This is a lot of the reason why I believe that there is something.
I think you could just distill it down to that. Basically, is what it comes down to. It's like, who are you, right? Do you believe that you are just matter compiled, like cells and matter compiled in neuron pathways, and that's you? Or do you believe that you are something else, something greater, some kind of soul or consciousness or whatever you want to put on it?
I think it goes deeper than that. I believe that it's more so of, I want to be myself and have no one higher than myself to make my own decisions, and there's no one that's going to judge me in the end. There's some people that are like that, I believe, Jeff, but I've met more people that are so rebellious that they're like, I don't want to believe in a God because I want to be in control of me. I am the highest being. There's no one above me besides like law enforcement or the president or something like that, or depending on where you're at, the emperor or the king or the queen or whoever. But as far as me goes and my ability to choose my own path, I don't want anyone above me. And it's not, at that point, it's not a notion of whether or not someone is bigger than you or something is bigger than you. It's that you're so rebellious that you don't want there to be, so you're going to refuse to believe it regardless of what the evidence is. Like, people are like, oh, well, if Jesus revealed himself, well, he already did, and you still don't believe it. So
we should have saved this for like a conversation episode. This is a whole other episode.
Well, he has to reveal himself every year on Easter to show the new people, hey, I'm here. No, he already did, and there's plenty of historical evidence, but you refuse to believe because you don't want to believe, because you want to be the highest thing in your realm, right?
The problem is if it happens now, it's a deep fake or a cheap fake.
Well, if it happens now, no one's going to believe it anyway.
Right, that's the point.
Right, it's AI. It's baloney,
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, I'm getting yelled at.
Okay.
It is time for us to retire this episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Bye. We're done. Bye. We've fought enough. We're over it.
We didn't fight. We fought. Anyways,
Jeff, you and I are gonna fight. We're gonna go in a boxing ring. I'm probably gonna lose, but I'll do it for my country. Dang it.
We literally agree on like most things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but not that one thing.
Not the fundamental thing. The thing that's gonna make us fight, Jeff. Yeah. I'm gonna shave off my beard so you can't grab this thing, and I'm gonna fight you. Good thing I'm nearsighted. I don't have to wear my glasses to fight someone.
Well, that has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. I hope you enjoyed the Christmas special this year, where it was half Christmas, half
argue.
Whatever that was. We got a lot coming up, everybody. A lot. Remember, hang tight for some news coming very, very soon, hopefully this week. All right. Until next time, travelers, we'll see you in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye, everybody. Damn right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.